Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a stack of source material and strapping right into the driver's seat.
Or maybe the passenger seat. The perpetually supervised passenger seat.
Right. We're talking about the decade-long saga of full self-driving, or FSD.
A topic that is just full of twists and turns.
It really is. And if you've followed tech at all, you know this vision has felt like a mirage on the horizon. It's always being postponed, pre-sold, previewed.
Always just around the corner.
Exactly. So our mission here is to unpack how this really bold vision of autonomy became, a case study in hype cycles and moving goalposts. We want to give you a shortcut to being well-informed on this intersection of tech and really consumer trust.
And that's the core tension in our sources.
Yeah.
FSD has been just around the corner for over a decade. And it forces you to ask a pretty provocative question.
Which is?
What if this whole thing isn't just a failed engineering project? What if it's a carefully crafted illusion? A perpetual beta designed to keep consumers waiting and paying?
So we're here to expose the dazzling promises versus the often disappointing reality.
That's the plan.
Okay, let's unpack this decade of any day now. If we go back to, the middle of the last decade, maybe 2014?
Around then, yeah. And the initial promises, they were not vague at all. We weren't talking about a better cruise control.
No, we were talking about cars that could drive themselves coast to coast with, and this is a quote, no human intervention.
The confidence was just staggering. The documents show timelines were announced. They were constantly updated, often with specific years, even months attached.
It gave the impression that this was an absolute inevitability, that level 5 supervision-free driving was, a year or two away.
It wasn't the language of aspiration. It was the language of guaranteed delivery.
But then the pattern started. The sources detail this cycle we see again and again.
First, the deadlines get missed.
Then the language used to describe the system gets a little softer, a little more vague.
And the actual definition of full self-driving starts to quietly shift. It goes from being this clear destination, your car drives itself, to an abstract, evolving software concept.
And that shift had a very real cost for the people who bought in early.
A huge cost. We're talking about people paying thousands of dollars up front. $5,000, $10,000, sometimes even more.
Believing they were investing in a future capability that was just about to be unlocked, they were buying the promise.
So what did they actually get?
Not level 5 autonomy. They got what our sources call an evolving software experiment.
Explicitly labeled beta.
Right, requiring constant supervision with annoying warnings and frequent disengagements when the system messes up.
So the company gets the data, and the consumer gets a very, very expensive supervised testing tool.
And that's the perpetual beta model, isn't it? It's a genius financial and legal structure.
Oh, absolutely. By calling it beta and making you supervise it, the manufacturer shifts almost all the liability and the testing burden onto the consumer.
Even though it was sold like a finished product?
Exactly. What was marketed as inevitable just dissolved into an indefinite delay. But the revenue, that was collected on day one.
It's a brilliant model financially. But it raises the question, if the marketing was so strong, why has the delivery been so elusive? It must have hit a massive technical wall.
That's the wall.
So let's shift from the financial side to just how hard this engineering challenge really is.
The goal, true level 5 autonomy, a car that handles any road, any condition, anywhere with no human oversight. It's orders of magnitude harder than level 2 driver assist. I think engineers they drastically underestimated the complexity of the real world.
This is where it gets really interesting. The problem isn't teaching a car to drive on a perfect highway. It's teaching it to handle what the sources call the chaos of reality.
We think driving is structured, but it's not. The world is fundamentally unstructured.
The source materials listed out. Edge cases aren't rare, they're infinite. Human behavior is completely unpredictable. A construction worker waving you on.
Or someone making an irrational lane change for no reason. Road conditions vary endlessly. Construction zones are a nightmare for algorithms because they're temporary and they defy logic.
And you have to think about the subtle things, too. And AI today is great at pattern recognition. It sees a stop sign, it stops.
But it struggles with true contextual understanding.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, think about a police officer in an intersection, overriding a red light and waving traffic through. A human driver gets that context instantly.
But the AI...
The AI often just sees a human-shaped object in the road. It
Yeah.
might default to a safety maneuver, like stopping, because it can't parse the instruction or the authority behind it.
And you can't overlook the hardware choices here. The sources talk a lot about the limits of vision-only
Right.
systems.
Vision is powerful, but it has critical failure points. You get
Yep.
sun glare, heavy fog, torrential rain.
And suddenly the car's main sense is compromised.
It's a trade-off. Other systems use LiDAR or radar, which are great in bad weather for mapping depth and distance. But when you rely only on vision, simple things like a reflection off wet pavement can confuse the system.
It might misclassify an object or worse, just lose the lane lines completely.
And this is the key point. You can't just keep accumulating data and expect intelligence to magically emerge. You need the right data for these infinitely chaotic edge cases.
Which brings us to a really uncomfortable truth from the sources. Despite years of updates and billions of miles driven, the performance gains have been incremental, not exponential.
You get stuck at, say, 98% predictability.
Hmm.
But that last 2%, that involves human life.
And even if, let's just say, the tech takes a giant leap forward tomorrow and solves all that chaos,
You immediately hit the second wall.
the immovable barrier, regulation.
Let's talk about that, because the regulatory red tape and the safety scrutiny are just as challenging as the tech.
It's a legal maze, right? Autonomous vehicle laws are all over the place, not just country to country, but state by state.
Oh, completely. What's legal for testing in Arizona might be totally prohibited just a few miles over the border in California. This patchwork makes a global rollout of one software package. Well, it's virtually impossible.
On top of that, the safety agencies have become much more skeptical.
And justifiably so, after some high-profile accidents involving these systems. When there's an investigation, it raises these profound questions that Level 5 tech has to answer.
And they're asking things like, was the driver misled by the marketing? Were the safeguards to keep the driver attentive good enough? Or were they easy to defeat?
And the big one, who or what is the driver when the car is in control?
That's the ethical gray zone, isn't it?
It's the heart of it. When a system is marketed as autonomous but legally requires constant human supervision, accountability just becomes hopelessly blurred in a crash.
The driver says, I trusted the system. The manufacturer says, it was level 2, you failed to supervise.
And that legal ambiguity is precisely why regulators are so cautious. It's not just bureaucracy.
Right. It's because the cost of failure isn't a software glitch you can patch. It's the loss of human life. They need proof of safety, not just aspirational claims.
And that caution runs directly against the third major issue from our sources: the marketing itself. The language used to sell this dream.
The language of hype. It's fascinating. You see these phrases used over and over like feature complete.
Or robotaxi ready. That's a big one.
And my favorite, the omnipresent idea that it's all just a software update away.
That phrasing is so powerful because it creates this psychological expectation that the finished product is already physically in your car, just dormant, waiting for a digital switch to be flipped.
And it's all supported by this powerful financial incentive. Sell the future today, you get the revenue today.
And that revenue funds the very development that's been perpetually delayed. Any delay can be reframed as progress. Every beta release is a breakthrough. It's an incredibly clever way to monetize uncertainty.
But the consequences for the customers who bought in are very real.
Very tangible. You see inflated vehicle valuations based on a future that hasn't arrived. You have confusing insurance implications because nobody really knows who's liable.
And most damaging of all, you have this huge, persistent mismatch between what the consumer expects, a safe, self-driving car, and the reality of supervising a software experiment.
So it's not just a technology issue at the end of the day. It is fundamentally a trust issue between the manufacturer and the consumer. And when you erode that trust, you slow down genuine innovation for the entire industry.
Okay, so we've covered the marketing, the technical wall, and the regulatory stop sign. Let's end on a more realistic note. Given all this, where is real progress in autonomy actually happening? Because it's not a completely failed dream.
No, that's a crucial distinction. You have to separate the consumer promise from quiet industrial applications. True autonomy is advancing and quickly, but it's in controlled environments.
Places designed to limit that chaos of reality.
Exactly. Our sources give clear examples. Think of geofenced urban zones where a system only operates within a fixed, tightly mapped area.
Or massive logistics hubs like warehouses or shipping ports.
Yeah, right. The routes are internal, speeds are low, and human unpredictability is kept to a minimum.
You could also add long-haul trucking on fixed highway routes to that list. that whole dock-to-dock idea.
And huge industrial sites like mines. In all these places, the variables are limited, the infrastructure is known, and the financial incentive for efficiency is immediate and massive. This is where AI excels.
So the realistic path to full autonomy isn't some sudden global software update like we were promised.
Not at all. It's going to be gradual, it's going to be localized, and for the average person, it might even be invisible. It will
Mm.
show up where the economics make sense and the risks are manageable.
And that really ties into the long-term cost of all this overpromising, doesn't it? The credibility crisis from the FSD saga is going to linger.
It will. Every missed deadline, every exaggerated claim, it just increases public skepticism for the entire industry. It makes it harder for the responsible companies to gain acceptance for their genuinely safe, localized systems.
Absolutely. I think the core finding from this deep dive is pretty clear. Full self-driving was sold as the destination you were arriving at, but it became a journey without an arrival date.
The progress is real. The technology is real.
But the hype was optional, and maybe strategically corrosive. A truly autonomous future is going to require honesty and realism to rebuild the trust that's been damaged.
And that leaves you with a final thought to consider, and it brings us right back to misrepresentation and credibility. If a company continuously sells a product based on what it will do in the future, while making you bear the cost and risk of what it currently does, at what point does optimism become misrepresentation?
Because the future isn't just about what technology can do.
It's about what we're told it already does when we hand over our money.